Here's why the Battle of the Gullet is the deadliest in House of the Dragon Season 3. The Targaryen Civil War, known as the Dance of the Dragons, is filled with fire, blood, and betrayal. From brother fighting sister to dragon pitted against dragon, it is one of the most destructive wars in Westerosi history. But even in this war of endless carnage, one battle stands above the rest in sheer horror and devastation: the Battle of the Gullet. This naval clash was not only the largest sea battle of the conflict, but also one of the deadliest battles in all of Targaryen history. It saw thousands die, fleets burned to ashes, and dragons thrown into the skies above the narrow sea. It was a turning point in the war, and a reminder of just how fragile House Targaryen's grip on power truly was. In this video, we'll break down why the Battle of the Gullet is the deadliest in House of the Dragon Season 3. We'll explore how the conflict began, the enormous fleets that clashed, the dragons that brought fire from the skies, and the devastating consequences that scarred Westeros forever. Strap in, because this is a tale of ambition, vengeance, and destruction on a scale like never before. The Dance of the Dragons was not just a war of thrones. It was a war of supply lines, alliances, and survival. By the time of the Battle of the Gullet, the war was raging across the realm. Rhaenyra Targaryen and her supporters, the Blacks, held King's Landing after her daring seizure of the Iron Throne. But holding a throne meant little without food, gold, and loyal forces to defend it. The Greens, led by Aegon II, still controlled Old Town, much of the Reach, and the Lannisters of the Westlands. Their fleets patrolled the seas. Meanwhile, Rhaenyra's cause grew fragile. Her supporters in the Riverlands and the Vale were strong, but King's Landing itself was starving. Recognizing the danger, Corlys Velaryon, the sea snake, devised a plan. The Velaryons had always been masters of the seas. Their fleet, based on Driftmark, was one of the most powerful in the realm. But alone, it wasn't enough. That's when an unexpected alliance changed everything. The Triarchy, a coalition of Essosi powers, Lys, Myr, and Tyrosh, had once fought Daemon Targaryen during the War for the Stepstones. Now, after years of peace, they saw the dance as an opportunity. The narrow sea was the lifeblood of trade, and if they could weaken the Targaryens, they could dominate those waters. So the Triarchy built a fleet. Not dozens of ships, not hundreds, but more than 90 warships, crewed by tens of thousands of sailors, mercenaries, and sellswords. This armada was massive, one of the largest Westeros had ever seen. Their target? The Gullet. The Gullet was the stretch of water between Dragonstone and Driftmark. Whoever controlled it controlled the sea lanes, the supply lines, and the gateway to King's Landing. The Triarchy's goal was simple: choke the Blacks, star the capital, and crush Rhaenyra's claim. The stage was set for the deadliest naval clash of the age. To understand why the Battle of the Gullet was so deadly, we need to look at the scale of forces involved. On one side was the Triarchy's armada, with nearly 100 warships, each bristling with sailors and mercenaries. They were unmatched in sheer numbers. Their ships were built for war: sleek galleys, heavy dromons, and fire-hurling catapults. The Triarchy's captains had one mission: destroy every ship loyal to Rhaenyra, burn Driftmark, and isolate Dragonstone. On the other side stood the Velaryon fleet. Corlys Velaryon, the sea snake, had spent his life building his house into a naval superpower. The Velaryons commanded dozens of swift, well-armed warships, manned by some of the best sailors in the narrow sea. But the Velaryons had something the Triarchy could never match: dragons. Jacaerys Velaryon, Rhaenyra's eldest son and heir, flew Vermax. Other dragon riders joined him, bringing firepower from the skies. Dragons made the Velaryons more than just a fleet. They were a storm waiting to be unleashed. Yet here's the truth: dragons are powerful, but they cannot be everywhere at once. And as the Battle of the Gullet would show, even dragons have their limits. The Triarchy struck suddenly, sweeping into the Gullet with their massive fleet. Their first move was devastating. They fell upon Driftmark and burned the Velaryon fleets at anchor. Many ships went up in flames before they ever set sail. But the Valerians were not unprepared. Corlys had seen the threat coming. He sent out calls for reinforcements, rallying loyal lords and mustering every ship he could. And soon, the Gullet turned into a cauldron of fire and death. The battle raged across the waters. Triarchy galleys rammed into Valerian ships. Catapults hurled pots of burning pitch. The sea boiled with wreckage and blood. Then the dragons came. Jacaerys dove upon the armada, Vermax breathing fire upon the decks of warships. Dozens of ships burned as men screamed and leapt into the sea. Other dragon riders struck, turning the tide. But the Triarchy was prepared. They had outfitted their ships with scorpions and ballistae, weapons designed to pierce dragonhide. As Vermax swept low, the ships opened fire. Bolts rained into the sky. One found its mark. Vermax was struck, his wing torn. He spiraled into the sea, crashing amidst burning ships. Jacaerys Valerian, heir to Rhaenyra, was lost. Some say he drowned. Others that Triarchy men cut him down as he tried to crawl ashore. His death was a hammer blow, not just to the Valerian fleet, but to Rhaenyra's cause. The death of Jacaerys did not end the battle. It only made it bloodier. The dragons continued to strike, burning ships by the dozen. The Triarchy's armada, however, fought back savagely. Ship after ship clashed, grappling hooks pulling vessels together as men fought hand-to-hand on flaming decks. The sea itself seemed to catch fire, with burning oil spreading across the waves. Sailors leapt into the water only to drown beneath wreckage or be dragged under by their armor. Even the dragons suffered. Though they destroyed much of the fleet, the risk of scorpion fire forced them higher into the sky, limiting their effectiveness. For every ship they destroyed, more pressed forward. The Valerians fought bravely, but they were outnumbered nearly 2-1. Even with dragons, their fleet was mauled. By the end of the day, dozens of ships lay shattered. Thousands of men were dead, and the seas ran red with blood. It was chaos. It was slaughter. And it was unlike anything Westeros had ever seen. In the end, the Valerians held. With dragon fire and desperate valor, they shattered the Triarchy's armada. The narrow sea was littered with wrecks, and the survivors of the Triarchy fled back across the waters. But victory came at a cost, so heavy it hardly felt like a victory at all. The Valerian fleet was broken. Many of their best ships were destroyed, their sailors dead. Driftmark burned. And worst of all, Jacaerys Valerian, the heir, the hope of Rhaenyra's cause, was gone. Rhaenyra's grief was immeasurable. She had already lost. The Battle of the Gullet was technically a victory for the Blacks, but it was a Pyrrhic victory, one that bled them so deeply that it weakened them for the rest of the war. So why is the Battle of the Gullet considered the deadliest of House of the Dragon Season 3? First, the sheer scale of loss. Tens of thousands fought in the battle. Thousands of sailors, mercenaries, and warriors were killed in a single day. Few battles of the dance matched its death toll.